Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on short notice. We wanted to be here this evening to celebrate the fact that today the White House announced that 7.1 million people have signed up on private exchanges for healthcare all across this country. That number will likely eclipse 8 million by the time that all of the state numbers come in and those that are in line finish signing up. This is a total that shatters original expectations, especially in the wake of the bumpy rollout of the website in the fall. It is evidence that the Affordable Care Act is working, and it is also evidence that the Republicans' entire political strategy for the spring and the summer and the fall is disintegrating before our eyes. And I'm joined here today by Senators Schumer and Boxer, and Whitehouse will say a few words. But let me just talk about all of the naysayers and how they have been proved wrong at almost every step of this implementation process. Republicans first said that nobody was going to sign up, with or without a functioning website. But we now have 7 million people who have signed up, which is more than the entire state of Washington. It's enough people to fill the big house in Michigan 64 times over. And we are beating expectations. When Medicare Part D was put into place, CBO's estimate, the enrollment ultimately was only 70% of CBO's estimate. We are likely to hit 110% of CBO's estimate on the Affordable Care Act. Republicans then said that, well, the uninsured aren't signing up. It's only people who have insurance that are signing up. Well, the data we have tells a totally different story. In Kentucky, they have reduced the number of uninsured by 40% just in the initial enrollment period alone. A new study by the RAND Corporation says that even before this final surge of enrollment, 9 million people all across the country had gotten insurance that didn't have it before. Then Republicans said that young people wouldn't sign up. Well, actuaries from Blue Cross and Blue Shield in Florida, Mutual Medical of Ohio, Highmark in Pittsburgh have all told us that young people are signing up in increasing numbers as we head to the enrollment date, and we are going to have a very manageable pool of insureds when all is said and done. Then Republicans said nobody's paying their premiums, but data today shows that 85% of enrollees have already paid their premiums. And of course, all along, Republicans have said that the more people learn about the ACA, the less people are going to like it. And a new Washington Post ABC poll says that for the first time, the majority of Americans support the Affordable Care Act, and that poll was taken before the news of today. Why have they been wrong over and over again? Well, it's because our healthcare system was broken, and we took common sense steps to fix it. And so today, Republicans, having heard that the ACA had hit the 7 million mark, I'm sure that they hoped that this was an April Fool's joke. It wasn't. And in the end, the joke is going to be on all of the ACA haters who have had everything wrong about the implementation of this bill from the very start. Let me turn the podium over to Senator Schumer.
Well, thanks, Chris, and let me thank you for the great job you've been doing leading our caucus in rebutting some of the Republican charges of ACA and showing all the good things about it. And I want to thank both Senators Boxer and Whitehouse, who are just stalwarts in reaching out to people and giving them a fair shot, which we're doing today. Now, as we've said time and time again, as more people enroll in Obamacare and see all it has to offer, the more popular it's going to be. That's exactly what we've seen in recent weeks. The enrollment numbers are up. We've crossed 7 million. The poll numbers are ticking up. Why is all this happening? Why are the poll numbers going up? Because before, the only thing people learned about Obamacare was from the Koch brother ads. And the Koch brother ads frightened people. Rush Limbaugh frightened people. I had a fireman in New York City who has a New York City health care plan that's gold. And he said, I'm going to lose my health care come April 1st because of Obamacare. And of course it was not true. And today he's seeing that it's not true. And so all of the malicious and false rumors are being put to bed, as at the same time, people are hearing from their neighbors, gee, this is working. I'm getting coverage. I'm paying less. My kid who had cancer is getting covered. So we have two things going on at once. The vitriol of the ads is declining because they're not proving to be true, and the benefits of ACA are increasing because people are seeing the real benefits. Just as we predicted, Americans have heard from friends and neighbors and family members and local business owners about the benefits. And now the dynamics of Obamacare as it relates to the midterm elections are shifting. We have long said that ACA will not be the defining issue of the 2014 elections. Instead, it's going to be jobs, good-paying jobs, and the decline of middle-class incomes. Republicans have insisted on pushing to repeal the law instead of fixing to make it work better, instead of focusing on the issues middle-class families should care about. They walked out on a limb when they put all their energy into attacking the ACA. And with these new enrollment numbers, it appears the branch is breaking. Now they're going to have to explain to 7 million people why they should lose their coverage, to millions more why they'd rather put the insurance companies back in charge. We are working at giving Americans a fair shot, giving the person who works 40 hours a fair shot to get out of poverty, giving a woman who works equally hard as a man a fair shot to get equal pay, and giving Americans a fair shot to fight their insurance companies and beat their insurance companies when it comes to health care. Come November, we're confident that our push to give the middle class a fair shot at a better life will prevail over the tired, false attacks against the Affordable Care Act.
Well, that's very nice of you. Thank you. I want to thank Senator Murphy for continuing to call us together, gather us together as we see something wonderful happening in terms of health care for the American people. So Republicans have been predicting the failure of the Affordable Care Act, and today they have been proven wrong. The proof is in the number of Americans who've signed up for affordable health care through the exchanges, 7 million plus. The proof is in the 4.5 million previously uninsured Americans who now have coverage through Medicaid. The proof is in the 3 million young adults who are able to stay on their parents' plan, and the proof is in the nearly 8 million seniors and others on Medicare who have saved billions and billions on their prescription drug costs. And any Republican who still thinks the Affordable Care Act should be repealed should understand that today we know we have millions of reasons to say thank you for this law. In California, we exceeded our state's goals for enrollment through Covered California on the exchanges. We exceeded the goals by 500,000 people. We expected 700,000. We have 1.2 million. So we exceeded our goals by 500,000 people. And by the way, there's going to be more news on that front because we only gave the numbers up to the night of the 30th. I'm going to close by a couple of stories. Eric Villanueva said, quote, this is Californians, "I'm so happy now that I have insurance. I can finally look at my family and tell them everything will be all right. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to pay. That cloud is gone, and there's no more what ifs. I'm covered." And Julie Meems from Sacramento said, "We no longer have to worry about being ruined physically and financially by a serious health issue. We enrolled in a Bronze 60 plan that will cost us $2 a month." Rebecca Tasker runs a small construction business in San Diego with her husband. They're saving $1,000 a month. She said, quote, "These savings will help our company grow and might allow us to be able to hire our first employee this year." Look, all those folks wanted was a fair shot at affordable health care. And that's what we stand for, we Democrats. Our agenda is a fair shot agenda. There are hundreds more stories like that coming. You'll hear it from us. Chris will organize us, and we'll tell those stories both here and on the Senate floor. But stunningly, House Republicans keep bragging about their never-ending efforts to take away health care from Americans. They voted 50 times, more than 50 times, and they're going to do it again. So you have to ask, why would you, as an elected official, want to dismantle a law that's helping millions of seniors, millions of women, millions of young adults, millions of children, millions of families, and there's only one answer: politics. But I say, as Senator Schumer has said, even the politics is wrong. You're going to see this turn. It's time for Republicans to realize that millions of Americans want this coverage, want this protections, and will not go back to the days when they did not have a fair shot to get affordable health care. Thank you.
In the Republican political bubble cum echo chamber that they've built on the Affordable Care Act, this bill, quote, continues to wreak havoc on American families. Speaker Boehner yesterday. Wreak havoc on American families. Well, now that we're through 7 million, it's worth, as Barbara did, looking behind the number and remembering what this means for real people. I think there probably isn't a person in this room who hasn't had what you might call one of those midnight moments when you can't sleep. It's midnight, there's a financial worry, there's a academic worry, there's a health worry, there's a family worry, and it's gnawing at you, and you toss and you turn. It's the hour of the wolf, and you're having one of those midnight moments. Well, a lot of those have gone away for Americans because of this law. Elena is a web entrepreneur from Warwick. She was unwilling to quit her day job because she was locked into it by the employer-paid insurance. Under the ACA, she has started her own small business and realized her dream. Susan from Warwick hadn't been able to afford coverage for nearly a decade. Under the Affordable Care Act, she now no longer has midnight moments about being uninsured. She has affordable coverage. Lisa from Coventry runs a house cleaning business, and she was really struggling to get by. She had insurance, but she could barely pay for it. Her costs have gone way down, and she doesn't have midnight moments with financial worries now as a result. Olive and her husband are elderly. They live in Woonsocket. They live basically on Social Security, and they have saved $2,400 just in the first year from being spared the donut hole. That is a big deal for a family living on the margins in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. A young man from Warwick, Rhode Island, went out on my Facebook page. He graduated from college in 2009. He said, "I'm glad when the ACA passed and I was able to go back on my parents." And final word here, a great relief to my mom, too. One less midnight moment for Mom. Susan got new coverage, and with her coverage, she went to get a checkup. The checkup revealed invasive breast cancer. If she had not gotten the checkup, it would have gotten worse, and whenever she finally did, it would have completely changed the prognosis. Right now, she says, "I have hope that I will fully recover, live for a long time, and see my daughter grow up." Single mom. Imagine the midnight moment she had when she found out she had cancer and she was alone with her daughter, thinking about what would happen to her daughter growing up. So behind this $7 million figure, remember that there are a lot of families for whom this makes a real difference. To say that it is wreaking havoc on these families is so laughable, it is really beyond belief. And as I said, the Republican political bubble cum echo chamber has really characterized what they've done, and they've really misjudged what is happening here, and the gas is going fast out of that balloon.
Happy to take a few questions if anybody has them.
As you say, the receiving health insurance is a pretty powerful thing, I think, both personally and politically for Democrats this year, but how can you be sure that voters will see it that way and extend the credit to a president who's still pretty unpopular, especially when there are a lot of Democrats, your colleagues, who are not here today, who will not run?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's only 4 of us here today. We didn't want to
didn't invite the
overwhelm
whole
you, yeah.
would've
But
been here, too.
right, you would have been a
4%
late
of the
night.
Senate. What
Right.
more do you
Want to stick around? I can go get another 20.
No, listen. I think the Washington Post poll is important today, and those numbers I think will simply get better as the Republican arguments against this law melt away. And what polling has always told us is that the electorate totally rejects the argument from Republicans that we should repeal this law, that by a 2-to-1 margin. People in this country want to see this law kept in place and are certainly willing to entertain changes. And so, I think that today's news is the biggest bump that this law has gotten since its initial passage. And I think that starting today, it is going to be impossible for Republicans to maintain a repeal message when that would steal health care away from 7 million people.
Can I just do this? And even without my body. What I want to tell you is that I don't think you realize perhaps how many millions of people are impacted in a great way by this law. Because it's not only the 7 million, it's not only the Medicaid, it's not only the kids who are staying on their parents' insurance. That's millions and millions right there. It's also closing the donut hole. We heard how many millions of seniors. Also now, free immunizations, free vaccinations, preventive care checkups. This goes deep. So I think at the end of the day, I'm going to say this. Pre-existing condition, no more problem getting insurance. A woman, if you were the victim of domestic violence, they can't stop you. They can't double your rates if you're a woman. Being a woman was a pre-existing condition. Kid with asthma couldn't get insurance. So the bottom line is, not only is Senator Murphy right that today is a huge day, but there's millions behind these 7 million, all of whom are going to recognize this is a different day. Their insurance company can't walk away from them. No more annual limits. They can't do that anymore. They have to stay with you. They have to spend 80% on you, not on their profit. So at the end of the day, I believe every American is going to see a benefit from this law, and it will redound to those who supported it.
We hear often Democrats saying that there is a willingness to fix the law, fix problems that have been coming up with the law. In the heat of the problems last October, a number of the Democrats, especially up for re-election, proposed some fixes that never came to a vote. Some of your red state colleagues offered some last week. Will we ever see any of these proposals come to the floor this year, or is there a reluctance?
Well, we've seen a lot of fixes, and a lot of the things that have been proposed by our colleagues, the administration has done. Most logically, if you want to fix it, it's better to do it administratively, because the House is never going to want to fix it. They're just for repeal. So, for instance, I met with the group that was working on that to try and contribute and help them. One of their main concerns was moving up the number from 50 to 100 in terms of the small businesses that would have to comply, because it would be hard for 50 small businesses to 50-person small businesses to comply. It was moved back. There's been delay. There's been changes. So there's been a whole lot of changes, as there should be. If you look at the history of Social Security, if you look at the history of Medicare, even if you look at the recent history of the changes for Medicare Part D, there were changes that had to be made. When you do such a broad, massive, important law, obviously there have to be changes. And the administration has shown itself not to be stubborn. They're not the mirror image of the Republicans who say repeal. They don't say keep it exactly as it is. Say, let's work at some changes that make it better, not that hurt it. I think you're going to continue to see that happening.
Is it not a benefit for some Democrats, though, to have an affirmative action of their own to cast a vote?
Well, people have introduced legislation, and they'd love to see it pass, but what do we do about the House?
And they should take credit for what the administration has
Yes,
done. I
they
think
are.
Chuck Schumer is so right about that. And by the way, if you're really interested in doing fixes, that's the way to go, the quickest way to go. But if we do open it up again, I'd love to offer public option.
Oh, absolutely.
How about
All right.
single payer?
Well, for a public option.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks, everybody.
everybody.
Thanks for
Yep.
mentioning.